Okay, the second mapping exercise involves relating the index of multiple deprivation scores to particular low super output areas to, in this case, a distance to supermarkets. The map can be found by this. If you just click on it, it will open it up. We'll have a look at the map in a second. If you have an ArcGIS account, it'll open up in your account. If not, it should just open up anywhere. The map includes data on super output areas in the town with detailed index of multiple deprivation scores. It's got the population centroids, which more in a moment. And we can map various food outlets, for example, supermarkets. And you're watching this video for the walkthrough. Yeah, so this is data we're going to be collecting. This is for a particular low super output area, sort of north of Martin heading into the town. It's got a designation. We're going to pick the long designation. It's got a decile. Remember, IBM deciles. 1 is the least deprived, 10 is the most deprived. And then we're going to map the distance to 5 supermarkets and calculate the average by ways. We'll have a look at that in a second. The map also, as I mentioned, brings in population centroids. Now this particular population centroid has Stewart's Park and it has Middlesbrough Sports Village. There's not a lot of people live here. So the population centroid, that is the balanced point for an average population density, is a long way from where you might expect the geographical centroid to be. Not always the case, but it is in this case. Then I've identified the 5 nearest supermarkets, and in this case there's not actually one within the low super output area, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to measure them, ways we'll have a look at practically in a second. Collect the information, take an average, and then we're going to collate them into the group data. So I'll pull in this Excel spreadsheet we've seen before. At least some of it anyway. So this is the data from a student who did this as a project. Looked across the whole of Teesside, I think. We maybe not going to do all of that. We'll decide what we want to do. So he mapped low super output area deciles and the average distance in when he did it to takeaways. And he calculated the Pearson's correlation coefficient, which came out as about 0.41, which suggests a reasonable coefficient, reasonable correlation, as you might expect from the graph. It is, broadly speaking, a straight line that increases with density with distance to supermarkets, distance to takeaways, I beg your pardon. So that's the previous data. On this page, this is tab in the workbook, we have a space for you to add your data. We'll decide what we want to do, and we should be able to eventually populate this with a reasonable amount of data for the distance in this case. At the moment it's still got it to takeaway, so I'm just going to change that to supermarkets. I'm going to change this to supermarkets as well. Supermarket density. Okay, right. Save that. Right, so we'll complete this data and we'll have a look at what the spreadsheet tells us. Right, okay, I'll get rid of that, so we don't need that anymore. Don't want to save it, Excel keeps asking. Right, so when we've done that, we need to think about drawing some conclusions from it, based on the Pearson's correlation coefficient data linking index of multiple deprivation scores and distances to supermarkets in this case. Do some critical analysis, think about what you did, how it could be improved, what other data might be considered as helpful in doing this analysis. And also, as we mentioned last week, think about your understanding of, as for your possible job applications, interviews in the future. Think about the fact that you've used geomapping tools, develop resources for public health campaigns, and analyse relevant qualitative data. In this case, the relationship between local resources and indices and multiple deprivation scores. And that's all I'm going to say in the presentation. So we'll bring the map in. Minimise that, make it a little bit bigger. Right, so I'll get rid of that. Right, okay, so at the moment this is just mapped with, this is, as we discussed before, this is mapped into low super output areas. So if you click on any one of them, it will bring up some data for us. And as we again noticed before, green is least deprived. Get rid of that. So areas around Martin and Nunthorpe there, less deprived. Areas around North Ormsby, for example, more deprived. And when we click on them, we notice it has the identifier, and has also the IMD decile. Again, 1 is the most deprived. So if we go back to where we were before, around Gypsy Lane, we see that's 9. So 9 out of 10. So it's one of the least deprived areas in the country. Right, okay. So that's for a particular low super orbit area. So now what we want to do is add the population centroids. If you can't see this, there's various base maps. We don't actually want one of them. You need to click on details. Details should pop up, and we'll notice low borough, low super orbit area population centroids, and it brings in these little pins. Right, so if we go now and find one of these little pins, we'll pick on that one. That is the population centroid for this particular super orbit area. Again, if you click over here, it'll give you the super orbit area information. Right, so there's a bunch of other things we can include in here. And make this a little bit bigger. We'll have to see how big it needs to be in a second. So with supermarkets, we've got pubs and bars, we've got hotels and guest houses. We decided we wanted to do supermarkets. So we're going to click on that, and the supermarket information should appear as little stars. Okay, so number of little stars in various places. The next thing we need to do is measure the distances. Right, okay, so we're going to measure, and we want to measure a distance. So we click on distance, and it should be in kilometres. I think that's fair enough. Okay, so what we do then is we click on the population centroid, and we draw a line. And again, click. You need to click twice to fix it. And we notice there it's given a distance there of 0.33 centimetres. So that's our first measurement. Right, so you need to click to get rid of it. It sometimes can be a little bit annoying. So again, we click there. We measure to this one. Double click. And again, the distance of 0.41 kilometres rather. So we collect our 5 measurements, the 5 closest supermarkets. So you may have to zoom in or out to find out where they are. There's a few scattered around here, but there doesn't seem to be many down this area. As you might expect, again, it's Stewart's Park, Middlesbrough Sports Village, so they're going to tend to be for this particular super open area in this area. Put them in the spreadsheet and do your calculation. Well, collect your five supermarkets, calculate the average, then put it into the spreadsheet. Right, okay, so hopefully we'll get some good results. More on this in the class. Thank you for listening.